All right, guys, Copper Cutlass coming at you, and it's Wednesday night. I'm coming out here to do a couple of things on the olds. I have to put my inspection cover back on. We have no leaks at the transmission. And I'm swapping out the gate for my shifter. I have a reverse pattern transmission. This is a forward pattern shifter. So for the B&M, luckily, you can swap out the gates. Whereas you can see I have the Hurst shifter on the vise to show you guys the difference. So this is a forward pattern shifter. I took out a forward pattern gate. It's very similar. I have both. The one with the yellow tape is the old one. And you can see there's a difference, right? So this is park, reverse, neutral, third. Well, in this case, this will be first, second, and then third. And on this one, it's the same thing, but it's 2-3, or it's 3-2-1. This would be 1-2-3. It doesn't change the shifting motion. The difference is in the way the gate is actuated. So, to put it in better detail, I'll show you on this shifter. So this shifter is already set to third gear, right? So you got, so let's just, okay, it's still a little loose. Let me crank it in there. There we go. So this is first. All right, so this is first, second, third, right? So when you're shifting backwards, you're going to hold this trigger, right, and go to second. But you can easily go back into high gear because you're still holding the shifter, right? And then you have to go back into what would be third gear if you're in reverse, but this is actually first. So normally in a forward pattern, this would be 1 to 2, 2 to 3. So when you're shifting backwards, you hold the trigger, but you can easily go back into high gear. And I witnessed that happening at the track a couple weeks ago, and it kind of freaked me out because it's something that you can easily screw up. And then not only are you dealing with the ultra high RPM, but at that point, it's like JJ mentioned to me that there's a mechanical rev situation that no rev limiter is going to really aid. So, you know, you can do this with a forward pattern transmission, whereas in a, you know, essentially you're taking the same pattern, right? So your 1 to 2 shift, even though it's still going to be backwards, if you can just forget about this motion, you're going to worry here about what's going on with the gate. 1 to 2 is going to be a bump. 2 to 3, you have to pull the trigger, but it's going to be done backwards. So 1 to 2 now, instead of having to hold the trigger, is going to be just a bump. And then 2 to 3, you got to pull the trigger. Yeah. So it's kind of hard with it on the. I didn't want to clamp it down too hard because I didn't want to bind up the body. But you guys get the idea of what I'm talking about. So, and the difference you can see here is, you see the difference in the gates, and that's right where, you know, like park, reverse, neutral, and then after neutral it changes. This is our reverse pattern. You could see the notches are when the trigger gets actuated and where it locks. So I got to swap that out. I got to put the inspection cover back on. I did buy a Holley blue electric pump for future use. Big thank you to Canola's Automotive in Michigan City, Indiana, which you have heard JJ mention. I have mentioned in the past. They're a great little speed shop in Michigan City, Indiana. And, you know, they stock in quite a bit of stuff. And if you can't find it, they will get it for you. If they don't have it, they will also get it for you, usually within a day or two. Great little shop. Highly recommend you guys checking them out. Canola Automotive in Michigan City, Indiana. They've been around for a while. Support your local speed shop. So onward with that. I'm going to crawl back underneath the car and check a couple things because we did just have the transmission out. I'm going to, once I'm done with the gate swap, I'm going to go ahead and get it up on jack stands, crawl underneath it, check a couple things, just make sure all my bolts are good, nothing's loose, no more leaks, which I didn't have any leaks, but still want to check. The car's pretty much ready. At this point, I'm not doing a whole nut and bolt because I just did that like 2 weeks ago, but I am going to do a visual inspection and mainly check all of like my bell housing bolts and my cross member bolts and my torque converter bolts and all that fun stuff. Check all that stuff out. Don't take it for granted. Spend the time. Now, the other thing I want to revisit is that my rev limiter did not work. It worked great up until we actually took it on the road. And that's where things went wrong. And I'll tell you guys what was happening. I know how this car should rev. I know how it should launch. I took it to my little spot and I got on it, and this thing was breaking up, spitting and popping. It's the spark. It's not happy. So I literally, since I used the Y splitter method that they described, I literally just pulled over the side of the road, opened up the hood, and I cut the power wire to the rev limiter, pinned it, and it was normal. So the rev limiter has its issues, and it's still, I'm going to say that it's still RFI. I just haven't had time to mess with it. I'm going to give it one last shot inside the car, but not today. It's not going to happen today, not for this race. We're just going to go for it and just pay attention like we have been to our RPM and be diligent about it. So on that note, that's pretty much what we got going on. We're racing this weekend. JJ's racing this weekend, and he did some videos about what he gets going and doing, and I'm going to kind of show it with you guys along with what I got going on, and you guys will get kind of introduced to his car if you guys don't know him from the forums, or if you're not already friends with him, then you get to see his car, which I painted the hood for about last April. So I'll let you guys go, and don't forget, share, like, subscribe. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I post some stuff up there at Copper Cutlass. Don't really do a whole lot on Facebook, but definitely hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. My wife's in here popping in, saying hi. So I'll let you guys go. All right, so I know I said my farewells, but you know what? This is important. I got it all in, and I want to show you guys. So I had to kind of redo the lettering on the shifter because now that the gate is flipped over, it's a little different. And it's not really flipped over, but you realize the notches change how the actuation of the trigger works. So I spent like almost the last hour, literally, I'm not even kidding, practicing because it changes, right? So the only thing is, like, I have to remember is if I pull the trigger, well, I'm still going to hold the brakes, but I got a block of wood. So if I pull the trigger, that's first. And then 2, you just pull it. And then 3, just pull the trigger. This is actually really nice because I'm used to death gripping the shifter, because on forward pattern shifters, like let's say this is 1, 2, 3, your 1 to 2 is usually just a bump, and then 2 to 3 you have to pull the trigger so you don't go into neutral, right? So when you hold on, let me remember, because now I got it backwards, but it's the 1 to 2. I believe 1 to 2 is you pull the trigger, and then 2 to 3 you bump it, which in this one I overshifted here. So, but either way, I am in 1, and then 1 to 2 is just a pull, 2 to 3 is just that. So from a racer's perspective, this is actually way better because now I don't have to pull the trigger, which if I try to pull the trigger and go in a second, it won't let me. I'm locked. So again, it's one of those things where I have to remember that because of the gate. So before, I'm pretty positive before on the gate, I explained it earlier, just revert back to that, but I'm pretty sure before 1 to 2 was a bump and 2 to 3 was pulling the trigger, and it would lock you out of neutral. So that was the way to lock you out of neutral, which right now I'm locked out of second. So this is the only thing I have to remember, is that the 1 to 2 shift is pull, 2 to 3 pull the trigger. And it's really nice. It's just I spent the last hour literally obsessing about it. And then I do have to pull the trigger for neutral, which this is annoying. I do that all the time. I don't care how long I've had this shifter. As soon as you pull the trigger, it bumps the lever, and then you have to do it all over again. So let's go over this again. If you do it too fast, it'll pull all the way down because this lever is literally stuck in the middle of the entire gate. So man pull into 1. So if I'm driving down the road and I just happen to need to go forward, all I have to do is from park to 1 is just pull this hard, go all the way down, right? Let go, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. That easy. So, and then let's say you're going down the return road, you've coasted, you can go back into first and just cruise it back up and get your time slip. And then boom, you're home free. But again, man pull, first, second, third. And you don't have to, this is a habit that I have to get rid of, like doing this. But because, like, again, all I have to do is 1 to 2, and that's it. So it's really, really nice. I no longer have to, because on the forward shift, you have to hold it to make sure that you're going to stop on the gate. And with this one, you're using the lever to release it from that gate so that it doesn't jam up. So like I said, when I go from 1 to 2, I'm locked out. The lever releases the gate, and we're good. So I thought that was important to show you guys. It was a fairly straightforward install. It's literally 2 flat slotted screws, 3 E-clips, and greasing it was an afterthought. So I ended up spraying some penetrating grease in there, like the little Zep, the 2000. But yeah, so that's the motion of it. And I have to keep remembering it. And I also wanted to make a video because I tend to remember these things. And that's the annoying thing, is that I can no longer just bump 3 in a neutral, you know, or first in a neutral, because this is, my shifter is reversed now. But not that I ever did that, because that's a habit that I never got into, is popping it in a neutral. So the only thing is that I have to hit the trigger to release it from to go in a neutral. So that's the, let's see, we're gonna go on first, second, third, and then first you're locked out, neutral, reverse lockout. Well, again, I have this bad habit, and I even did this before, and then, so there you guys go. That's done. Before, you know, there's that whole, I don't know. This is the correct pattern, and I actually really, really like it. I just have to get used to it. And again, we're going racing Friday, so I have to repeatedly practice this. I'm pretty comfortable with it now. I spent like an hour, but you bet your ass that tomorrow I'm going to do it again. And I'm probably going to drive it on the street, because actually driving it on the street and taking your focus entirely away from the shifter is also important. But there's no real way to screw it up. The only way you're going to screw it up is if, let's say, you see that worked that time. It doesn't always work. But let's say you're in third and you go into first. That's no good. You know, if I try to shift, you know, with the trigger from 1, it'll go straight into third. You know, so I need to shift. So it's pretty foolproof. It's pretty foolproof. As long as you don't go forward under load, that's all that matters. So 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and that's it. So I clearly have overstated this, but I feel like it's important. And yeah. So, and I made this on both sides because I used to have my sticker here, and I don't know if that was correct or not. That's just, on some of the other shifters, they have the little thing. Everybody's used to it, but the release notch here, there's a, you really can't make it out too well, but you can, let me see if I can turn on my flash. So right here, this coincides with the, so that's in reverse, and then neutral, first, second, third. And that coincides with the numbers, and that's why I did that. So that way, and I'm gonna paint this yellow tomorrow with a paint marker. That helps a lot, because on this shifter there is no guide pin like on some of the other shifters where they got a little red thing. This red thing is my reverse lockout. So I will let you guys go. Again, share, like, subscribe. I hope you guys like this video.